The Midland Main Line is a major railway in England from London's St Pancras station to Sheffield, via Luton and Bedford in the east of England, and Kettering, Leicester, Loughborough, East Midlands Parkway, Derby, Nottingham and Chesterfield in the East Midlands. Since the closure of the rival Great Central Main Line in the 1960s, the Midland has been the only direct main line rail link between London and the East Midlands and parts of South Yorkshire. In January 2009 a new station, East Midlands Parkway, was opened between Loughborough and Trent Junction, as a park and ride station for suburban residents of East Midlands cities and to serve nearby East Midlands Airport. Express passenger services on the line are operated by East Midlands Trains. The section between St Pancras and Bedford is electrified and forms the northern half of Chesterfield, with a fast service to Brighton and other suburban services. A northern part of the route, between Derby and Sheffield, also forms part of the cross-country route to Bristol and in summer, southwest tourist resorts, operated by Cross Country. Tracks from Nottingham to Leeds via Barnsley and Sheffield are shared with Northern. TransPennine Express operate through Sheffield. East Midlands Local also operates regional and local services using parts of the line. Historically the line had an extension through Leeds in the near northeast to Carlisle, and by agreement with other line developers ran to Glasgow and Edinburgh in Scotland. The East and West Coast Main Line's faster and more direct services to Scotland caused these services to be lost. Later, overhead electrification of the West Coast Main Line and the Beeching Cut saw the marginally longer London-Manchester service via Sheffield ceasing. A straight railway from Derby to Manchester was thwarted in 1863 by the builders of the Buxton Line who sought to monopolise on the West Coast Main Line. The line retains connections to the Peak District via the Hope Valley Line. History. The Midland Main Line was built in stages between the 1830s and the 1870s, originating in 3 lines which met at the Tri-Junct station in Derby, which became the Midland Railway. First to arrive was the line built by the Birmingham and Derby Junction Railway from Hampton in Arden, Warwickshire to Derby, which opened on August 12, 1839. This route presents the cross-country route through Birmingham to Bristol. Derby was supplemented on July 1, 1840 by the North Midland Railway to Leeds Hunslet Lane via Chesterfield, Rotherham Masborough, Swinton and Normanton. This avoided Sheffield, Barnsley, and Wakefield to reduce gradients. On the same day the Midland Counties Railway, which also already ran from Nottingham to Leicester, was extended to a temporary station on the northern outskirts of Rugby, Warwickshire. A few months later, the Rugby Viaduct was finished so as to reach the London and Birmingham Railway's Rugby station. This cut 11 miles off the existing Birmingham route via Hampton in Arden. When these 3 companies merged to form the Midland Railway on May 10, 1844, the Midland did not have its own route to London, and relied upon a junction at Rugby with the London and Birmingham's line to London Euston for access to the capital. On southern section, by the 1850s the junction at Rugby had become severely congested so the Midland Railway constructed a direct route from Leicester to Hitchin via Bedford giving access to London via the Great Northern Railway from Hitchin. The line avoids Northampton, instead going via Kettering and Wellingborough in the east of Northamptonshire. This line met with similar problems at Hitchin as the former alignment had at Rugby, so in 1868 a line was opened from Bedford via Luton to St Pancras, which became known as the Bed-Pan Line and is now part of Chamberlain extending to Brighton. Northernmost sections, the final stretch of what is considered to be the modern Midland Main Line was a relatively short Sheffield bypass which was opened in 1870. The mid-1870s saw the Midland Line extended northwards through the Yorkshire Dales and Eden Valley on what is now solely called the Settle-Carlisle Railway, considered an independent route and not part of the present-day Midland Main Line, although included in its diagram shown to the top right. Before the line closures of the Beeching era, the lines to Buxton and via Millersdale during most years presented an alternate main line from London to Manchester, carrying named expresses such as the Palatine. Express trains to Leeds and Scotland such as the Thames-Clyde Express mainly used the Midlands corollary Wash Valley Line, return to it then used the Settle and Carlisle Line. Expresses to Edinburgh Waverley, such as the Waverley travelled through Corby and Nottingham. partly to appease the concerns and opposition of landowners along the route. In places some of it was built to avoid large estates and rural towns, and to reduce construction costs the railways followed natural contours, resulting in many curves and bends. This has also resulted in the MML passing through some relatively hilly areas, such as Shornbrook above sea level. This has left a legacy of lower maximum speeds on the line compared with other main lines. The response to a similar situation on the West Coast Main Line has been the adoption of tilting trains, but there has been no proposal for such a solution on the Midland Line. Most Leicester-Nottingham local passenger trains were taken over by diesel units from April 14, 1958, taking about 51 minutes between the two cities. In 1977 the Parliamentary Select Committee on Nationalised Industries recommended considering electrification of more of Britain's rail network, and by 1979 BR presented a range of options that included electrifying the Midland Main Line from London to Yorkshire by 2000. By 1983 the line had been electrified from Moorgate to Bedford, but proposals to continue electrification to Nottingham and Sheffield have not been implemented. The introduction of the high-speed train in May 1983 following the Leicester area re-signalling brought about an increase of the ruling line speed on the fast lines from 90 miles per hour to 110 miles per hour. Between 2001 and 2003 the line between Derby and Sheffield was upgraded from 100 miles per hour to 110 miles per hour as part of Operation Princess, the Virgin-funded cross-country route upgrade. In January 2009 a new station, East Midlands Parkway, was opened between Loughborough and Trent Junction, to act as a park and ride station for suburban travellers from East Midlands cities and to serve nearby East Midlands Airport. Most recently 125 miles per hour running has been introduced on extended stretches. Improved signalling, increased number of tracks and the revival of proposals to extend electrification from Bedford to Sheffield are underway. Much of this £70 million upgrade, including some line speed increases, came online on December 9, 2013. Corollary lines, also part of the line, as defined by Network Rail, are the Wash Valley Line, Leicester to Burton-upon-Trent Line, Oakham to Kettering Line, sections of the Nottingham to Lincoln Line between Nottingham and Newark, sections of the Birmingham to Peterborough Line between Nuneaton and Oakham, Rutland. Accidents: September 26, 1860 Bull Bridge accident. Bridge collapse, September 2, 1861 Kentish Town Rail accident. Collision, December 24, 1910 Hawes Junction Rail crash. Signalman forgot about train, September 2, 1913 Aysgill Rail accident. Collision, December 3, 1923 Nunnery Colliery, December 13, 1926 Orgreave Paddy Mail accident. March 22, 2005 Market Harborough Rail accident, February 1, 2008 Barrow-upon-Soar Rail accident. Operators East Midlands Trains The principal operator is East Midlands Trains, which replaced Midland Main Line on November 11, 2007. East Midlands Trains operates 5 intercity trains every hour on the MML from London St Pancras with 2 trains per hour to Nottingham and Sheffield and 1 train per hour to Corby. There are also limited services to Scarborough, York, Leeds, Melton Mowbray and Lincoln and additional services to Derby and Kettering. The former operator, Midland Main Line, also ran limited services to Matlock, Burton-on-Trent and Barnsley. IMT uses a modern Class 222 Meridian trains in various carriage formations for most of its intercity services. Older 8-carriage HST are used for its Nottingham fast service as well as its Leeds services. East Midlands Trains are proposing to run new St Pancras to Skegness services. Additionally, East Midlands Trains runs rural services between Leicester and Nottingham to Lincoln and Nottingham and Ambergate to Matlock, while also running regional express services between Nottingham and Sheffield as part of its Norwich to Liverpool route. Chamberslink provides frequent, 24-hour commuter services south of Bedford under the name of Govia Chamberslink Railway as part of its Chamberslink route to London Bridge, Gatwick Airport, Brighton and Sutton. Using 4-car electric Class 319, Class 377 Electrostar and Class 387 Electrostar trains which can be coupled into 8 and 12 car formations. Cross-country and Northern Rail cross-country runs half-hourly services to between Derby and Sheffield. Trains carry on to Birmingham, Plymouth, Bournemouth, Doncaster, Leeds and Scotland. They also provide hourly services between Nottingham and Derby to Birmingham and Cardiff. Northern Rail runs an hourly service to Leeds from Nottingham via Alfreton in Barnsley. Other operators include London Midland in the Bedford area, First Trans-Pennine Express in the Sheffield area. Route definition and description. The cities, towns and villages currently served by the MML are listed below. Stations in bold have a high usage. This table includes the historical extensions to Manchester and Carlisle. Network Rail group all lines in the East Midlands and the route north as far as Chesterfield and south to London as Route 19. The actual line extends beyond this into routes 10 and 11. London to Nottingham and Sheffield equals. Tunnels. Amblegate Junction to Manchester equals. For marketing and franchising, this is no longer considered part of the Midland Main Line, see Manchester, Buxton, Matlock and Midlands Junction Railway. The line was once the Midland Railway's route from London St Pancras to Manchester, branching at Amblegate Junction along the Manchester, Buxton, Matlock and Midlands Junction Railway, now known as the Derwent Valley Line. In days gone by, it featured named expresses such as the Palatine. Much later in the 20th century, it carried the Midland Pullman. This line was closed in the 1960s between Matlock and Buxton, severing an important link between Manchester and the East Midlands, which has never been satisfactorily replaced by any mode of transport. A section of the route remains in the hands of the Peak Rail Preservation Group, operating between Matlock and Rowsley to the north. Leeds to Carlisle equals. For marketing and franchising, this is no longer considered part of the Midland Main Line, see Settle Carlisle Railway. World War I prevented the Midland Railway from finishing its direct route through the West Riding to join the Settle and Carlisle. The first part of the Midlands West Riding extension from the main line at Royston to Dewsbury was opened before the war. However, the second part of the extension was not completed. This involved a viaduct at Dewsbury over the River Calder, a tunnel under Dewsbury Muir and a new approach railway into Bradford from the south at a lower level than the existing railway leading into Bradford Midland Station. The 500 yards gap between the stations at Bradford still exists. Closing it today would also need to take into account the different levels between the two Bradford stations, a task made easier in the days of electric rather than steam traction, allowing for steeper gradients than possible at the time of the Midland's proposed extension. Two impressive viaducts remain on the completed part of the line between Royston Junction and Dewsbury as a testament to the Midland's ambition to complete a third direct Anglo-Scottish route. The line served two goods stations and provided a route for occasional express passenger trains before its eventual closure in 1968. The failure to complete this section ended the Midlands' hopes of being a serious competitor on routes to Scotland and finally put beyond all doubt that Leeds, not Bradford, would be the West Riding's principal city. Midland trains to Scotland therefore continued to call at Leeds before travelling along the Aire Valley to the Settle and Carlisle. From Carlisle they then travelled onwards via either the Glasgow and South Western or Waverley route. In days gone by the line enjoyed named expresses such as the Thames Clyde Express and the Waverley. Leeds along the Airedale line, here is Appley Junction for the Wharfedale line. Shipley, here is the triangular junction for the branch line serving Bradford Forster Square, Saltaire, Bingley, Crossflates, Keighley, here is the Worth Valley branch junction to Oaks-in-Hope. Steeton and Silston, Canonley, Skipton, here is Settle Junction for the line to Morecambe, Giggleswick, Clapham, here was the junction for Ingleton and an end-on junction via Seedbeg to Low Gill on the London and North Western Railway West Coast Main Line. Bentham, Lancaster Green Area, at this point the line divided, a triangular junction for the two lines, Morecambe, Heysham Port, including a station for Middleton Road Heysham. Settle, Horton and Ribblesdale, Ribblehead, Dent, Garsdale, at Hawes Station, on the branch to the east of the main line, there was an end-on junction with the North Eastern Railway line across the Pennines to Northallerton. Kirkby Stephen, Appleby, Langwaithby, Armathwaite, Cumwinton, Carlisle. Former stations. As with most railway lines in Britain, the route used to serve far more stations than it currently does. Places that the current main line used to serve include London to Leicester, Camden Road, Haverstock Hill, Finchley Road, Welsh Harp, Knapsbury, Chiltern Green, Amt Hill, Oakley, Shornbrook, Erchester, Findon, Isham and Burton Latimer, Rushden, Desborough, East Langton, Kibworth, Great Glen, Wixton Magna, Leicester to Trent Junction, Leicester Humberstone Road, Cossington Gate, Hayden, Kegworth, Trent, Derwent Valley, Preston, Draycott, Borewash, Derby Nottingham Road, Wingfield, Stretton, Clay Cross, Wash Valley. Long Eaton, Stapleford and Sandiacre, Stanton Gate, Trowell, Elkston Junction and Cossall, Shipley Gate, Cotner Park and Ironville, Pye Bridge, Westhouses and Blackwell, Doe Hill, Chesterfield to Leeds, Staveley, Eckington and Renishaw, Kilmarsh West, Bayton, Woodhouse Mill, Treeton, Shearbridge, Unstone, Beechief, Millhouses, Heeley, Attercliffe Road, Brightside, Holmes, Rotherham Masborough, Parkgate and Romosh, Kilnhurst, Swinton West. The following on the original North Midland Railway line, WATH North, Duffield, Royston and Notton, Oakenshaw, Normanton, Methley North, Woodlesford. Upgrade works in the 2010s. Network rails plans. The Midland Main Line has for many years been thought of as a Cinderella line, but, with the increasing capacity constraints on other lines, the route looks set to benefit from investment and enhancement. Plans for the line include re-signalling of the entire route, expected to be complete by 2016 when all signalling will be controlled by the East Midlands Signalling Centre in Derby. Rebuilding Bedford, Leicester and Nottingham stations, which would also involve an enhanced approach layout during re-signalling works. Accessibility enhancements at Elstree and Borehamwood, Harpenden, Loughborough, Long Eaton, Luton and Wellingborough by 2015. Upgraded approach signalling added at key junctions, Radlett, Harpenden and Leagrave, allowing trains to traverse them at higher speeds. Lengthening of platforms at Wellingborough, Kettering, Market Harborough, Loughborough, Long Eaton and Beeston stations, as well as work related to the Thameslink programme. Realignment of the track and construction of new platforms to increase the permissible speed through Market Harborough station from 60 miles per hour to 85 miles per hour, saving between 30 and €60 seconds. Electrification, speeds of up to 125 miles per hour between Elstree and Borehamwood and Radcliffe Junction on the fast lines at a cost of £69.4 million, leading to an 8-minute reduction in the express London, Sheffield journey time and a 6-minute reduction for London, Nottingham journey times on services operated by Class 222 DMUs. Redoubling the Kettering to Oakham line between Kettering North Junction and Corby, as well as re-signalling to Siston Junction via Oakham. This will allow a half-hourly London to Corby passenger service from December 2017, possibly using Class 387s, and will create additional paths for rail freight. Electrification equals. Work to reconfigure the existing electrified section and to electrify most of the line was announced on July 16, 2012 for completion by 2020 at an expected cost of £800 million. Despite significant electrification enabling work having already been completed, in June 2015 the Secretary of State for Transport announced that the electrification would be paused. On September 30, 2015, the Department for Transport announced the resumption of the work with revised completion dates of 2019 for Corby and Kettering and 2023 for the line further north to Leicester, Nottingham and Sheffield. In January 2013, Network Rail announced that it was to be electrified at a cost of £500 million during Control Period 5. It was planned that the Bedford to Corby section will be electrified by 2017, Kettering to Derby and Nottingham by 2019 and Derby to Sheffield by 2020. Under those plans, Nottingham to Clay Cross via Alfreton was not to be electrified, nor Corby to Siston via Oakham. Electrification could allow some Class 390 services to transfer to the MML from the West Coast Main Line and some Intercity 225 from the East Coast Main Line. For example, running services from St Pancras to Sheffield via Market Harborough and Derby, Derby via Market Harborough, Nottingham via Market Harborough, Kettering and Leicester could provide quicker journeys on the Midland Main Line and extra space for new direct services and other types of rolling stock on the West Coast Main Line and East Coast Main Line, as well as some remaining Pendolino and Intercity 225 services. Services to Corby could also be run using Class 387. However, services from St Pancras to Leeds, York, Scarborough, Melton Mowbray, Sheffield via Nottingham and Alfreton and Derby via Melton Mowbray, would still have to utilise diesel Class 222 Meridian or Class 43/HST, because these routes are not planned to be electrified. The electrification is part of the wider Electric Spine project to create an electrified route from the port of Southampton to Sheffield and possibly Doncaster. The project will mean electrifying the Varsity Line, the Cherwell Valley Great Western Main Lines and the Reading to Basingstoke Line. The South Western Main Line between Basingstoke and Southampton will be converted to overhead AC electrification from third rail DC power. Further possible electrification associated, Sheffield to Doncaster. This is seen as a priority by the Department for Transport, Clay Cross to Trent Junction via Alfreton, Corby to Manton Junction, New Neaton to Felixstowe via Leicester, Peterborough and Ely, Ambergate to Matlock. Growth traffic levels on the Midland Main Line are rising faster than the national average, with continued increases predicted. The now-defunct Strategic Rail Authority produced a route utilisation strategy for the Midland Main Line in 2006 to propose ways of meeting this demand. Network Rail started a new study in February 2008 and this was published in February 2010. After electrification, the North Northamptonshire towns are planned to have an additional outer suburban service into London St Pancras, similar to the London Midlands Crewe, London Euston services to cater for the growing commuter market. North Northamptonshire is a major growth area, with over 7,400 new homes planned to be built in Wellingborough and 5,500 new homes planned for Kettering. The service will be operated by new Class 387s. 2010 Route Plan, Network Rail's 2010 route plan for the Midland Main Line stressed improving infrastructure to allow more and longer trains to operate in the future as more houses are built in Northamptonshire. Highlights include, work related to line speed increases, removing foot crossings and replacing with footbridges, various capacity enhancements for freight. Route utilization strategies Freight utilization strategy. Network Rail published a route utilization strategy for freight in 2007. Over the coming years a cross-country freight route will be developed enhancing the Birmingham to Peterborough line, increasing capacity through Leicester, and remodelling Siston and Wigston junctions. Thameslink Programme. The Thameslink programme has seen all stations south of Bedford apart from St Pancras, Kentish Town, Cricklewood, Hendon, Luton Airport Parkway be lengthened to 12-car capabilities. West Hampstead Thameslink has had a new footbridge installed and a new station building constructed. After September 2014, the Thameslink Great Northern franchise, currently operated by Thameslink, will be refranchised. After July 2015, Southern services will be merged with it. Route utilization strategy. In the East Midlands route utilization strategy, Network Rail recommended the Intercity Express programme trains, the Class 801 in 10-car formations for the Intercity services. Two 775 metres freight loops south of Bedford and between Kettering and Leicester for longer and heavier freight services, additional infrastructure to accommodate additional freight and passenger train paths, and also recommended an additional stop at Kettering for the semi-fast London-Sheffield service. Stations From 2013 to 2014 Nottingham Station is being refurbished at a cost of £50 million, creating a better interchange with trams and taxis. A new platform canopy has been installed on Platform 6 and the station frontage is being cleaned. a multi-storey car park has already been constructed. In summer 2013, the Nottingham station area had a month-long blockade. A new platform was constructed, 143 new signals were installed, track was replaced, junctions were simplified for higher speeds, 4 signal boxes were replaced by Derby Signalling Centre, 2 level crossings were renewed and 2 were replaced with footbridges. As part of Wellingborough's Stanton Cross development, Wellingborough Station is to be expanded, with an extra station building on a reopened Platform 4 as well as a 6-storey and a 3-storey car park. There are also new stations planned or proposed on the Midland Main Line. 3 stations are planned. Brent Cross Champs, a link between Cricklewood and Hendon, is part of the Brent Cross Cricklewood development in North London. Wykesams between Flightwick and Bedford is part of the new town just outside Bedford. Expected to be built by 2015. Elkston between Nottingham and Langley Mill. Stations proposed: Clay Cross between Chesterfield and Ambergate Alfreton. Erchester between Wellingborough and Bedford. Ampthill between Bedford and Flightwick. See also, Great Central Main Line, former competing main line. Notes and references. Notes. References. External links.